I'm Mackenzie Diarmas, one of the game designers here at Wizards of the Coast for Dungeons & Dragons, and today I'm going to be walking you through Vecna, Nest of the Eldritch Eye. This video will contain spoilers for what the adventure contains, so viewer discretion is advised. If you are planning on playing this adventure or you have a DM that wants to run this adventure, avert your eyes now. So, this adventure starts in the city of Neverwinter, which you might recognize from Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. This is a city that has been plagued by cataclysm after cataclysm, and as such there is quite a lot of danger to be found sort of rooted and lurking about the city. Lord Protector Dagult Neverember has hired the adventuring party to serve as sort of security. It is a very common practice in Neverwinter to outsource the city safety to mercenaries and adventurers that sort of come into the city, which makes it a great place to start our adventure. Now, the adventure itself fully kicks off as your party encounters a harrowing scene in the streets of Neverwinter as they find a dead body clutching a single desiccated, withered eyeball. When we were kind of creating this adventure, we really wanted that sort of shocking, almost Pulp Fiction-y kind of start where all of a sudden there is a dead body and you have to figure out what's going on and why. And also with Vecna kind of being the looming force behind it, the eyeball seemed like a very perfect clue and also very just strange and odd and vaguely disgusting item to sort of kick off the adventure and get the character's interest. The eyeball itself is actually a magical compass. I was particularly entranced with the idea of having the eyeball in your hand and watching it kind of swivel around as you're sort of trying to navigate to where the secret hideout is. And so the characters have to do a little bit of investigating, whether through magical means or through rifling the dead man's pockets, bless his heart, to find the keyword that will activate this magical eyeball and let them sort of figure out where they need to go in this city. Once they sort of follow the eyeball's instructions, which is a terrifying sentence I never really wanted to say out loud, they find themselves at the entrance to a small section of the catacombs underneath Neverwinter. Now, as I said, this is a limited section that has been kind of blocked off and caved in and half flooded by some of the sewers. We wanted to keep the area of the adventure very small, mostly to keep the playtime in around a one-shot, so 2 to 3 hours, but also because there are so many other catacombs in Neverwinter that we wanted to leave up for either the DM to flesh out on their own or for the players to explore in perhaps Vecna Eve of Ruin. You might find some of them there as well. But these catacombs, like I said, they're kind of gross. When we were writing this adventure, we really wanted to take these catacombs in a different direction than most catacombs are. I wanted to really lean into the fact that these are ruined catacombs. These are catacombs that have been subjected to earthquakes and cave-ins and have not been well tended to. And so as a result, they're kind of sludgy, grimy, sewery. I was looking up references for catacombs when I was writing this adventure, and I was really intrigued by the ones that almost looked half flooded with wastewater or rainwater, and that idea of like having to navigate a semi-flooded underground area felt real fun to me, especially as a challenge for lower level adventurers who may not be used to trudging through things like difficult terrain or dealing with like water-based monsters. Now we get to go into the catacombs proper. At the very first start, it's just sort of a tunnel kind of going down. But then we get to the first sort of what I call a choice point. In this first chamber, you have two options. There is a large sort of flooded sewer tunnel that your players can either wade through, or if they are on the more resourceful side, build a little skiff that will let them sort of float down and propel themselves down this flooded tunnel. Or if they are particularly perceptive, they might notice a crawl space off to the corner that is hidden by some rubble that might lead somewhere else down the adventure. My personal favorite route, though, is going through the flooded tunnel because there is a water weird lurking there. And I think this is a particularly fun scene for combat as you've got your character sort of either floating on skiffs or waist deep in this murky water, and this water weird kind of rises up. And water weirds, their alignment is influenced by the kind of water that they are in. So Freshwater water weirds might be more peaceful, but this is a water weird that has been sitting in stagnant, disgusting sewer water for a while. So it's not entirely happy to have adventurers traipsing about its lair. Following that, we end up in the Theary Rotunda, which includes one of my personal favorite encounters, as it is an encounter that may not involve combat. In fact, it probably shouldn't. This encounter involves a ghost that has forgotten its identity. And you can, of course, ignore the ghost if, you would prefer to just get to the cult and get that off your plate. But if you stop to help the ghost, you might find some interesting rewards in it for you. This Theary Rotunda, in addition to being haunted by a ghost with no memory, has two ancillary tombs connected to it. And you can investigate those tombs and figure out who is buried there. And through sort of careful piecing together of clues, you can find the full name of the ghost that is haunting this tomb and reveal it to them and restore their memories. In return, the ghost can give your party information about what is to come in the catacombs, as well as remove a curse off a magic item that they might find tucked away in the shelves. Otherwise, you might be stuck with a shield of missile attraction, which is never great, because you will become the target of every arrow and crossbow bolt that you come across. Up next, after the Theary Rotunda, we have what I could consider to be a very quintessential catacomb encounter, which is zombies, hordes of undead. Feels very appropriate for exploring a very ruined tomb. Here we also get to see a little bit of the cultists that you are sort of hunting down, as they have been the ones who have desecrated this tomb area and have as such caused these zombies to rise up again in undeath. Your more religious inclined characters, or perhaps even your bards, however, might find a different way of pacifying these zombies. There is a desecrated shrine to Ogma that can be cleansed through your clerics or your bards or anyone who's sort of inclined for performance or knowledge or spellcasting, as Ogma is in the world of the Forgotten Realms, the deity of knowledge, patron deity of bards. Now, of course, if you prefer to just hack and slash your way through a horde of zombies, that works just as well here too. Now, we shall pivot back into the Theary Rotunda and go through a secret door that is behind one of the tombs that leads to the corridor that the crawl space back up in that half-collapsed cavern led to. This is another fun place where the adventurers might make different decisions and choose different points and different directions that they might go down through the adventure. If they want to backtrack through the call space, they certainly can, but the next challenge going through that route is another sign of the cultists, as the characters must face some refuse that has been left over from the cult's various experiments. I always like to, when I'm creating an adventure, to figure out what are the consequences of the antagonists in the adventure. And as you'll see later on, the Cult of Vecna that we're dealing with here is very interested in the process of siphoning secrets out of mortal individuals. Trying to separate that sort of thing through sort of foul magic can create unwanted byproducts and refuse, and also just a lot of failed experiments. And so we kind of encounter them here. These are gray oozes that have been slightly modified to better fit the theme of the undead cultists of Vecna, that are kind of just sloughing around in this sewage chamber that the party has to dispatch in order to get to the doorway into the cult's hideout. Now, the other fun thing about the eyeball that they found at the beginning, in addition to being a compass, it is a key. Every cultist of Vecna in this sort of little cult has their own little eyeball that they use as a means to, one, relocate where their cult is if they change hideouts, and also to unlock the door into their hideout. So you're going to be seeing a lot more of these eyeballs later on. But with that eyeball in tow, the characters have the thing they need to open these doors and proceed down into the eponymous Nest of the Eldritch Eye. Here we've got a lot of more stealth and investigation sort of adventure. There is a room full of sleeping cultists that you might want to sneak through, or you might want to take hostage and intimidate into giving you some information. There is also an Eldritch library that you can investigate and sort of get a clue as to what this cult is all about, what their goals are, what you might encounter in the final room, in the final big climactic showdown with the cult's leader. There's also one of my favorite sort of cinematic pieces is when you first enter into the cult itself. They have sort of converted this, what was once kind of an underground hall of worship, which is something that is kind of common in certain constructions of catacombs. There will be a church or something else that is sort of secluded away, so people who are coming down to pay their respects can also pray or worship and so on and so forth. The Cult of Vecna have converted this sort of small church-like structure into a worship hall for Vecna himself. So you kind of walk in and all of a sudden you're sort of hit with this sort of eerily lit pews and this statue of a very withered hand clutching an eyeball up on the altar, which I think is just a wonderfully eerie image to sort of walk into as you start hitting the climactic stage of the adventure. As you're kind of adventuring and exploring through this area, you can discover what the cult has been up to. Encounter cultists, you can fight them, you can intimidate them, you can possibly sneak past them. There's lots of different opportunities here. But the final encounter, you go into their big ritual room. It is a very classically cinematic ritual room with the big runic circle in the center, sort of a room that's hewed out of a cavern. And you've got your big glowing runic circle as the cultists are doing a ritual of sorts. And you encounter the cult leader, who is, as I had mentioned earlier, siphoning secrets from the souls of these cultists. And so for this final encounter, we wanted to keep it at a reasonable level for your level 3 players, but we also wanted to add that little bit more spice, if you will. So what we did was we took the shadow stat block, which is personally one of my favorite stat blocks to use in adventures, and sort of used those as these manifestations, these umbral manifestations of these secrets that have been siphoned out of the souls of these cultists. So you are fighting not only the cultists, but these shadowy manifestations of the secrets that they have accrued and kept deep within their soul. So, hopefully, when you've reached this point in the adventure, the characters are triumphant in their face-off against the Cultists of Vecna and their siphoned, manifested secrets. The characters and the cult get a visit from a very interesting someone. As it turns out, Vecna himself, being the god of secrets, has been very interested in this sect's experiments into siphoning secrets to gain a power. So the fun thing about Vecna, though, is that he is a very thoughtful villain. He's very smart, he's very clever. He likes to keep an eye out on potential threats or potential allies. And while he is, in his appearance here, disappointed in his cultists for falling so easily, he does thank the cultists for bringing him perhaps new points of interest. That being the characters themselves. At the end of the adventure, Vecna bestows upon every character who helped root out his cult a supernatural gift of sorts, a charm, which the rules for which you can find in the Dungeon Master's Guide, of course. This charm, in addition to different benefits, also imparts upon the characters this unshakable feeling that they are being watched. Because Vecna is always sort of looming in the background, always watching. But regardless, the adventure itself is concluded, and the characters can deliver the captured cultists to Lord Neverember and gain their rewards and feel satisfied in a job well done. Though something is, and will be, always watching them. I hope you enjoyed this walkthrough of Vecna, Nest of the Eldritch Eye. I hope your players enjoy it as much as I enjoyed helping create this absolutely wonderful, fun little adventure. And the adventure doesn't have to stop here. There are numerous different plot hooks and other ways of continuing this sneak peek into the machinations of Vecna, including Vecna Eve of Ruin, which is a much longer, high-level campaign that really gets into the depths of what Vecna's plans for the multiverse are. But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining me, and may you roll well.